Audra Yankton, empowerment and intuition coach, and this is Unveil You, the podcast where spirituality meets practicality to help you step fully into your power. Each episode, we'll talk about what it really means to align with your higher self, trust your inner knowing, and walk through life with grounded, soul-led confidence. Let's get into it. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Unveil You podcast. I'm Audra, empowerment and intuition coach, and today we're going to do something just a little bit different. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been feeling a lot of heaviness in the world right now. And I kind of wanted to take a break from coaching things and do something super fun and a little bit different than the rest of the podcast episodes. And for those of you that are watching along on YouTube, now I have a YouTube channel, FYI, for anyone that didn't know. Where I'm posting these podcast episodes too, as well as just an additional place for you to find me. This is the first time I'm actually recording a solo episode using video. So look at me stepping out, step by step on this pathway to visibility that I have been working through, as those of you who have been following my journey know about. So anyway, the content of this episode has to do with my love for the old Willy Wonka movie. And I'm talking specifically about the one with Gene Wilder, not some of the newer stuff that's been going on. It's always been one of my very favorite movies. And until recently, I never really knew why this movie meant so much to me. I've seen it, I can't even count how many times. It just really speaks to my soul every time. And it is an immediate mood booster for me. I just love it so much. But recently I had this realization that this movie holds so many soul truths, and I decided that my podcast series needed a deep dive on this beautiful movie and all of the spiritual significance that it actually has once I really started putting together some of the reasons that I really enjoyed it. And so I put together a little analysis on this movie for you all. But let me ask you this question before we get started, which is, have you ever had a moment where your life felt unfair or heavy, or maybe even hopeless, and yet deep down, a part of you still believes something magical could happen, and that somehow against all odds, a door would be opening for you? That is the energy of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And on the surface, it looks like a whimsical children's story. It starts with the chocolate and all these kind of crazy characters all over the place. But underneath, I now realize that it's a parable about spiritual awakening, shadow work, and ascension. Which, if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I'm using those terms, here's a really quick breakdown for you to catch you up to speed. A spiritual awakening is that moment of realizing that there's more to life than what you see with your physical eyes. So in my own personal journey, when I started to go through a spiritual awakening, it was the birth of my daughter, when life flipped up on its head for me and I started to question my reality and what was going on and why am I actually here. That was my version of the start of a spiritual awakening that evolves over time. You're always going through a spiritual awakening once you start. It's just you learn more and more and more about the world around you. So the spiritual awakening part, though, that's the initial point, a turning point, you could say, for some people when they start to want to understand more about the reality around them and what the whole point is. So again, it's when you realize you're not human, you are a soul having a human experience. So you're not just a person, you're a soul inside of a person's body, kind of controlling it from that perspective. Next thing is something that I want to cover is shadow work, which is the process of facing the parts of yourself that you would just rather avoid, which is your fears, your ego, your old patterns, those kinds of things that are keeping you stuck and not moving forward. So yeah, the shadow work then is going to be the process of facing the parts of yourself that you'd rather avoid, just so that you can grow. So that is part of the spiritual awakening process, is once you become aware that you are a soul in a human body, you start to realize that you are maybe stuck in some patterns that aren't serving you anymore, or maybe you're thinking about things about yourself that aren't all that accurate and are keeping you down. So those are your shadows. Those are like why we call it shadow work. So that's something I talk about a lot in my coaching, is literally how do people confront these shadows and move past them and things of that nature. So anyway, that's what shadow work is. Then finally, ascension. Ascension is simply rising to that higher level of awareness and alignment. So you're living more fully as your true self. the self that your soul came here to be, not the one that society programmed you to be, but the one that you came intentionally into this human body to become and truly embody. So it happens at different stages when you've closed past cycles that are no longer serving you. So you could say, as you close these cycles and go through shadow work, things that are no longer serving you, and you're letting that go. And you keep the faith. So that is when you realize that, I don't know, some people say hack the matrix or whatever. It's kind of that same concept when you keep the faith that you know you're taken care of in a spiritual sense, and that everything is truly so much bigger than just you in this body right now, and just holding that faith, basically, that things beyond you will take care of you, and you have higher awareness, let's just say. So anyway, those are kind of the three main terms I wanted to cover before we got into this. So on Willy Wonka terms then, the golden ticket is not just candy. It's initiation into this higher path or his spiritual awakening. So the factory is not just a playground. It's the soul's inner temple. So it looks like a kid's running through a factory in the movie, when really it's kind of an analogy for the soul's inner temple is this chocolate factory. So each child's downfall then is going to be that the ego is blocking them from expanding or ascending. So I'm going to walk you through room by room and discuss this story and what it's been trying to teach us all along. And a lot of it, too, kind of has to do with chakras and as you rise up from root to crown. So if you haven't listened to my chakra meditation yet, that kind of will give you an idea of what each chakra really tangibly is in real life, and not just in Willy Wonka terms. So the first thing I wanted to discuss then is going to be, again, this golden ticket as the spiritual awakening. So the golden ticket represents the first spark of awakening, like that. So it's that invitation that you get when you start to question everything, like, wait, what's going on here? It's that invitation to enter that higher plane of consciousness. So you might notice how people chase it with desperation and greed and obsession and, bribery and all sorts of stuff in the movie on Willy Wonka. But Charlie receives his ticket through different means versus the other kids. Again, they were spoiled brats. That's kind of the point. They were given this awakening on a golden platter, which is not how it works in the real world. Like, you can't just have bad intent and have a spiritual awakening, and they can't both exist together. It's like unity consciousness is a thing. Like, you want what's best for your neighbor because that's what's best for you too, kind of mentality. Like, that's a pure level of intent is I guess the example I'm giving there. So Charlie gets his ticket because he surrenders and has humility and faith, and unlike these other kids who get it through these kind of greedier, not in alignment type of means. So again, here's the key. Even though Charlie's life looked hopeless on the outside to us, as we're, the viewers that are watching, he was poor, he's hungry, he's eating cabbage water for dinner, and they're all excited about a loaf of bread that's supposed to go around 8 people. Like, it was pretty rough in that movie, if you remember. He's just surrounded by limitation everywhere he turns, like with adults and his life and his job, all sorts of things. He never lost the faith, though. You can remember in the movie that he would sit there and at night just look through his ceiling, had a hole in it, poor kid. And he's still thinking, I could get this golden ticket, like this could be mine. And, him and Grandpa Joe get really excited about that. So he had no reason to believe, yet he did. So that's a huge parallel to how it works in the real world too. It's like, if you really want something and it's truly meant for you, you have to believe that you'll get it, or else it's not going to come to you. What happens to you is what you believe will happen. So you might as well believe the exciting thing that you want will happen, right? So again, it's manifestation in its purest form, staying open to outrageous possibilities and holding faith even when your external reality looks grim. So that's why the golden ticket shows up in Charlie's hands. It's not as a reward for greed or striving like the other children, but it's a reflection of his vibration of belief and openness to miracles. So he kept the frequency, he kept the faith, and the universe met him in the middle there. So really beautiful there. That's how spiritual awakenings arrive. It's not when we force it or when we're grasping for it, but it's when we've hit our lowest point and open ourselves to grace. So the universe gives us our ticket, so to speak, when we're ready to say yes. So now I want to talk about the factory itself as the inner journey through 7 rooms. So again, knowledge of chakras will kind of help you here. So I'll just give a brief, like, 2-word description of each chakra. But again, if you want a deeper dive on what each chakra is in your body, these energy centers that go from the tip of your spine, basically your tailbone, all the way to the crown of your head. There's 7 of them, and they each have a different meaning for your energy body. So definitely something to be good and brushed up on if you don't know much about that. But anyway, going back to then when the gates open on the Willy Wonka movie, it's not just a factory tour. That is the initiation rite. So each room of the factory represents a test of ego and desire and attachment. So think of it again like the chakras or levels of consciousness. So 7 thresholds you must pass to ascend. So here's a breakdown of each. So the first one is the chocolate river, where our friend Augustus Gloop meets his fate, falls in the chocolate river, and gets, taken away, sucked out through a tube, and the Oompa Loompas have to go find him. So the chocolate river represents our root chakra, which is at the very first one at the bottom. So that's your root chakra, or your survival chakra. It's basically the chakra that governs your sense of security and things of that nature. So again, Augustus Gloop falls here. It's gluttony, it's overindulgence, and it's primal instinct. So it symbolizes the first chakra where survival and consumption dominate, which is really what Augustus Gloop embodies when he can help himself in eating the chocolate out of the river. So to move forward spiritually, you must transcend being ruled by these base appetites. So everybody else seemed to avoid that stuff. Their first chakra was happy and doing well. Augustus is not so much. And that's why he ended up falling into the chocolate river. So then the second chakra as you go up is the sacral chakra, which is where desire and ego is housed. So I liken this to the inventing room, which is where they go next. So Violet Beauregard, the girl that wears the purple and she's obsessed with chewing gum, she takes the gum from Wonka. That was still in research and development. He warned her not to do it, but she did it anyway. And the impatience and pride is what drove her to do that. So that's, again, desire and ego. She had a lot of desire, and her ego was not in control, so she was not able to help herself. So the blueberry inflation, when she turned into the blueberry, it reflects our ego swelling out of control. So the sacral chakra is distorted when this happens. So that's when you have a lot of issues with desire and vanity and wanting to be the first. That's really important. So if your sacral chakra is not in line, you might notice you have some of these issues. So a reason to work on something like that. Next up is your solar plexus, which is the chakra that houses your power and control and things of that nature. So that's the golden goose room, which is where Veruca Salt is kind of going nuts. And she's just like, I want everything. I want it now. We all know that song. And so everything she wants is fueled by entitlement and greed, which is not coming from a place of integrity at all. So that does not align. This is the solar plexus chakra shadow. So every chakra kind of has a good expression of what that looks like. That's when you're living in alignment and you're happy and doing the things that light you up. And then there's the shadow side of all the chakras, which is all the negative stuff I'm talking about. So the shadow of the solar plexus chakra is that unchecked willpower and domination traits. So she definitely didn't have that in check when she got to this room. She ends up falling down a chute, and that's kind of the cleansing of the distorted power. She kind of hit her rock bottom right there. So hopefully Veruca on the other side of that was doing better when it came to her solar plexus. And then next thing is that TV room. These aren't by the way, these aren't necessarily the order of which the rooms come in for Willy Wonka. I'm just going in order of how the chakras stack up. So although it's not like a total root to crown, like alignment, like as far as the rooms that they enter, it's still valid in the way that all the chakras are represented, and they just come in like a different order. So anyway, the TV room, this is where Mike TV, the little cowboy kid, comes in. And this is the heart chakra, which is your chest, located in your chest. And this is where your attention and connection lives. or, love, like the feelings of love. That's your heart chakra. So Mike TV becomes obsessed with shrinking into the screen, and he lost connection to reality in his relationships and just like went for something that was not a good idea. And this mirrors how the heart chakra collapses when we disconnect from our authentic presence and we get lost in illusions. So really important to keep this one in check. And it got poor Mike TV that day. The next one that we'll talk about is that psychedelic tunnel that they went down. It wasn't necessarily a room, but it was definitely part of the story. So I believe this represents the throat chakra, which is your truth or speakability, things of that nature. So the chaotic boat ride that they went through, I remember watching that little like creature crawl across that guy's lip, just gave me the chills. I hated it so much. It always scared me so much as a little kid. Sometimes my mom would actually fast forward through this part. So more as an adult, I'm watching this scene now because I watch movies by myself. I don't need my mom to fast forward through the scary parts. But the chaotic boat ride represents something that is called the dark night of the soul, which is something that it's that rock bottom moment for people when the truth is distorted, your shadows surface, and the throat chakra is really tested here. Can you stay in truth and faith while everything feels like madness? That's really hard for some people. Sometimes it's easy to lose your way when you're going through some of the hardest times of your life, but just know that you're being tested for a higher purpose at different times. And always remember, when you're going through something that's less than desirable, to say the least, what is the reason for that, and why would the universe be testing you, so to speak? They don't put you through situations just for fun. The universe does not get satisfaction out of seeing people not have a good time. It's usually your soul, probably on the other side, decided that was a test it needed to have at some point to learn a lesson. So there's always a reason or a higher reason that we might be going through hardship. So just a little side note there. But anyway, back to the psychedelic tunnel. Notice here that Charlie isn't just tested by the factory itself also. Even Grandpa Joe, who's the person he loves the most, like pulls him off course. And Grandpa Joe tests him into drinking those fizzy lifting drinks, which nearly cost Charlie everything. If you remember at the very end of the movie, Charlie is like, "Oh, I made it to the end," and before the elevator scene. And he's like, "So, Grandpa Joe's all, where's his chocolate? Like, does he win? What happens?" And he's like, "No, like we knew you were in the fizzy lifting room and that wasn't allowed, and you caused us all these problems. So no, you don't get it." And that was kind of the direct, influence of Grandpa Joe pushing Charlie to do that, if you remember. I'm not saying Charlie had nothing to do with it, but a loved one that he trusted and really thought had his best intentions at heart led him astray and led him to do the wrong thing. So, just kind of something really profound that comes out of that scene is sometimes even our closest loved ones, the people that love us the most with the best intent that they have, can unintentionally pull us off of our path. So it doesn't mean you start cutting everybody off that ever, helped you make some less than good decisions. It's just a reminder that people can still have good intent for you and still pull you off of your path at different times in your life. So it's just really important to always think for yourself and critically think through situations as it affects you through your perspective. And it doesn't mean you be mean to people and tell them to go away. It's just really trust the advice that you're getting. That's all I mean by that. So even with people with good intention, such as Charlie's Grandpa Joe. So going up then, we just went through the throat chakra, which is located here. So then the next scene then that I'll call out is the glass elevator scene, which is going to be the third eye chakra, which is your vision, like your vision into higher dimensions. Like, yes, we have our eyes that see on this planet, but then people that, practice their psychic abilities, like if they close their eyes and where they're seeing stuff at, that's in their third eye chakra. So just so you're aware. The elevator, though, rising above the factory and kind of blowing out the top and breaking all the glass, that's the opening of the third eye, which is where you're at the point in your spiritual journey where you're seeing beyond illusions, you're breaking out of confinements, and you're perceiving these higher realities that are accessible to you. And, higher connection with spirit, all sorts of things. So Charlie earns this because he alone chooses integrity and honesty. So so then going back then to the fizzy lifting drink story at the end when he's like, no, you don't get the prize basically. Another moment where Grandpa Joe tried to lead Charlie astray was he was like, oh, that's BS. Stand up for yourself. You take that everlasting gobstopper from Wonka and we're going to sell it to Slugworth. And, all of the bad things that we knew were sketchy that he shouldn't do. Grandpa Joe was sitting there really pushing him to do that. And instead of doing that, Charlie chose integrity and honesty, like I was just saying. And he left the gobstopper on the table. And he's like, here you go, Mr. Wonka. And he was fine to just leave and lose the prize, but he still wasn't going to screw Wonka over. And that ultimate test that he had, where he had every right in Grandpa Joe's eyes, and probably Charlie was not happy to hear that either, that he wasn't going to be winning the prize anymore. That moment was the universe, or Wonka, I guess you could say, testing him. And he passed the test when he chose integrity over his ego. So that's something we have to practice in our real life too, is choosing integrity over ego. And it worked out because Charlie was not only given the chocolate prize, he got the whole factory. His whole life changed because he kept the faith and held it in integrity. So that's really exciting. Finally, the crown chakra, located at the very top of your head. That's the last chakra. So the last room I like in that too is, or I guess situation I like in that too, is the skyward flight. So when they're in the elevator over, it's a mystery. No one ever revealed what that city is that they're in. It's somewhere in Germany is my theory, but honestly, I don't know. I think they filmed it in Germany, but I think it's supposed to be a mystery. So anyway, they're flying out over the village somewhere in presumably Germany somewhere. And this final ascent into the clouds, like if you remember, it was kind of scary at first, like, oh my gosh, and then they bust through the ceiling and then they're through the clouds. It represents that crown chakra opening up, so which is your union with divine consciousness. So where you are always getting those downloads and beautiful information from the divine. It's transcendence of the physical, and it is liberation. So it's the reward of the awakened soul. It's like, now that you understand how all of this works, you can live your life how you dream it to be. And here you go. It's literally like achieving ascension, or achieving like your crown, like all of your chakras being in an alignment and living in alignment. And all these things I'm here to help coach people on is finding your true self and path and purpose, and coming back home to yourself. That's when you can achieve this ascension and, literally get the chocolate factory, AKA live your dream life. It's amazing. And it's achievable to all of us. And it's just through doing all the shadow work and staying in integrity and keeping the faith. That's really the biggest step. So then another talking point, now that we've talked about the chakras, is I want to introduce Willy Wonka as a concept of the higher self. So, or spirit, or, whatever you like in that too. Your higher self is basically the part of your soul that is not in your body. It's like, say your soul splits in half when you become a human. Half of it goes down into your human body, and the other half kind of stays above and is doing other stuff. You can, be in multiple places at once as a soul. It's just like, it's really dense here down on earth, so you don't get your entire soul in your body, but you get like half of it or something like that. I'm not going to guess the percentage, but I know there's a piece of you that lives beyond here in soul form on the other side, called your higher self. So this version of you does not have ego. It thinks through things from a unity consciousness perspective, and just in high integrity. So that if you ever, that's kind of advice I give to my clients all the time is, if you're struggling with a decision and you don't know what to do, it's like, what would your higher self do? That will always keep you on the straight and narrow to kind of like channel that part of yourself and keep yourself in integrity. So anyway, Wonka is this kind of eccentric guide, as spirit guides tend to be, for those of us who have connected with our spirit guides and know them. They're mystical, they're paradoxical. Sometimes they're very frustrating. Like I've said before, my higher self and my spirit guides too, they're all kind of on the same team, so you can see in the same way. Mine are angels, and they speak in poetry, which is both beautiful and very frustrating because I don't want to decode poetry all the time when I'm asking for, assistance or questions to my spirit team. So anyway, you get a lot of different emotions interacting with your spirit guides. So Willy Wonka, thinking of him as a spirit guide or a higher self, he never directly tells the children how to win, which is similar to how living on Earth is. You're never told the exact recipe and the exact codes of like how to break through and like live your life, to like have your highest timeline. It's stuff we have to figure out through trial and error living here. That's just how it goes. Instead of telling the kids how to win, he set the stage for their own inner nature to reveal itself. So that's what the higher self does. That's what your spirit team helps you do. It doesn't just hand you the answers. It gives us experiences that are going to test you and refine us until our true essence emerges. So that is literally the spiritual awakening process till you achieve mastery, till you achieve ascension, is that you're constantly in this pressure cooker of situations that are either you give up and you don't care and you don't do anything with it, or, which I hope most of you are on this side of it, you're going through these experiences and you're refining yourself and you're learning more and more every time until you become your true self. You become your authentic self, expressing yourself in your full authenticity, living your life how you dreamed it, not just because society told you to. So going back to Charlie, then he's not perfect, just like the rest of us are not perfect. As humans are not perfect. That's why we come here. That's why we have ego. The whole point is to learn stuff. So he passes the test, not because he's perfect, but because he chooses things like humility and gratitude and love when it matters the most. So when he returned that gobstopper, he proves he can align with integrity over ego. And in that moment, you could say the gates of heaven or the gates of consciousness swing wide open. So here again, Grandpa Joe urges Charlie to betray Wonka and to act out of spite and take that revenge. But then Charlie chooses differently. Again, Wonka being his spirit guide, higher self, whatever you want to call it, testing him. Charlie goes ahead and chooses differently. So he kept it in integrity. And that moment just shows you that your higher self and your spirit guides, they call you forward even when the voices you love most encourage you to go against your integrity. So it's really important that each and every one of us is carving our own path and making choices for ourselves and not just something that someone told you to do, because that's not what your soul came here to do. Your soul did not come here to just play the same game everybody else is playing and just get through life the way someone else told you to. That would be about as useful as us all being robots. So there's a reason we all have consciousness and, a conscience and free will. It's because there are just all these things at play to like help you prove to yourself that you can do it. You can become, or start this enlightenment journey. You can become more and more enlightened all the time and take control of your life again. When you live in alignment, that's when life gets easier. That's when the things that you want and the things you desire become more achievable for you, is because the universe is now going to meet you halfway because you met them halfway, if that makes sense. So then finally, just like to summarize this episode, because we went a lot of different ways with it, the golden ticket is that spiritual awakening. It's that moment that awakens you in a literal sense of like, I'm more than just a human. I'm a soul in a human body. The 7 rooms that I talked about today are the soul's journey through shadow and ego and purification. And Wonka is your higher self or your spirit guide, guiding you through paradox and play. And then the glass elevator finally at the end is Ascension. So your reward for staying aligned with the truth, or your truth, whatever your truth is, staying in alignment with that is the reward from that is Ascension, which is represented by that glass elevator ride. So let's not forget that Charlie's life was supposed to be hopeless, right? Like he was not set up for success seemingly at all. He had no resources. He started from the bottom, truly. Yet he just kept the faith. He kept believing and he stayed open to miracles and he believed that anything could happen. So that's the essence of manifestation, is holding the faith in the unseen and then allowing the impossible to become possible for yourself. And even when Grandpa Joe, our favorite Grandpa Joe, I know in my family, we always call Grandpa Joe a sack of crap. It's a joke. It's a joke. But, and then we started like looking down the rabbit hole of social media. It turns out there are so many hate Grandpa Joe groups, and it's nothing against the actor or anything like that. It's just like, man, Charlie, like, gets his golden ticket, and really his mom should be the one to go with him because, um, she is the one really like keeping the lights on at the house, and she could use a break. Like, she's a laundress. She's worked really hard. And then all of a sudden, Grandpa Joe couldn't walk for all these years. It's like, oh, golden ticket. You don't say. Well, all of a sudden I can walk again. So it was one of those things where, yeah, in my family that never sat well with us. Like, like that. I don't know. There's some parable about the mother hen who like does all the pie baking or something like that. And everybody wants the pie, but they didn't want to help with it. That's Grandpa Joe. So anyway, even when Grandpa Joe, who was his closest friend and ally, urged him to go against Wonka and to keep the gobstopper out of revenge, Charlie chose integrity instead. And that is when you know you've achieved spiritual maturity. So this is knowing that when your loved ones don't understand your higher path, you can still walk it all by yourself. And sometimes those we love won't fully come on the journey with us, but that's okay because some people are seasons in your life, and sometimes it's just a break. Like if something's not working now with a relationship with a loved one and they just don't understand what you're going through, and they're maybe causing you some pain in different ways because of that, just know that what's meant to be will be. And it's true. If you love something, let it go. And if it's meant to be, it'll come back to you. So don't ever fear choosing yourself and like resisting living someone else's dream if that's not in alignment for you. You should choose yourself every time. And more often than not, if someone is a relationship worth having, they will come around and they will support you. So just don't forget that as you go through things and make choices for yourself, is that if you're living in integrity and you know that what you're doing is right for you, the people that you love will support you too. And if they love you back truly. If they don't love you back truly, I guess that's telling in itself. But, let's choose the positive side of that. I always like to take the positive slant on things. So they will come around. So now that we've talked about all of the things again in the movie context and kind of wove it in with some real life things, let's officially tie it up in a bow at the end and tie it back to you. So a spiritual awakening, again, is realizing that there's more to life than what you've been told. Maybe you've felt that inner nudge or that whisper that you're here for something bigger. That's your golden ticket moment. That's your body saying, it's time. Let's awaken. Let's move towards an aligned life. Shadow work is facing the patterns or fears that keep tripping you up. So it's the impatience, the people pleasing. I know that's been a big theme for me my whole life. People pleasing. Why am I doing that? I had to figure that out. I had to clear a lot of blocks and do a lot of shadow work. And the doubts that come with that. So just like each child in the factory, and just like Charlie and Grandpa Joe, you're going to face temptations to give in or betray yourself. So every time we mess up in this life is an opportunity to examine, like, why did I do that? Don't be mad at yourself. Like, we're human. We make mistakes. But like every time you make a mistake, it's like, there's something that keeps me doing that. Especially if it's a cycle of repeated behavior of yours that you can't seem to break through. Like, really sit with yourself and understand why. And like I said, my coaching business is really, really, that's kind of what it's geared around, is like when you're sitting there spinning your wheels, you don't know why you keep doing the same stuff, and you're here for better things and what's going on here. Sometimes just that third person perspective, like the one I can provide to you as a coach, is what you need to just kind of be that sounding board of like, okay, like, let's talk about why you keep doing these things. And you're the one doing the work. I'm just your guide to help you understand that and plug in everything and connect all the dots so that you can effectively be releasing the things that aren't serving you anymore and just live your very best life. So that's shadow work. And then finally, the Ascension, which is the version of your version of the glass elevator. So it's those moments where you break free from old limits and you rise into a life that feels expansive, aligned, and true. So then the question becomes, where are you in your own factory tour right now, figuratively? Which room are you in? And can you, like Charlie, hold faith that even if life feels heavy or unfair, and even if not everyone in your life understands, you can still choose integrity and your own golden ticket will appear? So anyway, That's what I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed. And if you loved seeing this childhood story through a spiritual lens, share this episode with a friend and it might open their eyes too. Also, if you liked this and you want me to do other movies, feel free to DM me on Instagram or comment on this episode. I thought this was super fun. And sometimes it's really fun to have an example that to just see it through a different lens. So, anyway, if you're interested in that, let me know. And if you're ready finally to take your own factory tour and clear out those ego layers that are holding you back and clear the shadow work or the shadow patterns that you have, I'd love to invite you into a complimentary 20-minute connection call with me. And in that call, I will offer you personalized guidance to help you move forward. And you can request your call at the link in my show notes. It'll take you to the contact page, or if you go to my website, which will also be in the show notes, you can look through it. There's lots and lots of different points that you can click on to request that connection call with me. So looking forward to that, meeting all the beautiful people that this might have spoken to. And until next time, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful week ahead. So thank you so much. See you in the next one. Bye.